Welcome to this explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to be your guide today as we put on our investigative historian hats and, well, peel back the sands of time. We're looking at the totally enigmatic lineage and the sheer, almost mind-bending architectural impossibilities of ancient Egypt's greatest monuments. We're going to look at the evidence, examine the data, and really try to piece together a puzzle that has quite literally baffled humanity for millennia. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Who actually built the Great Pyramid? And, get this, was he even the rightful heir to the throne? We have this massive gaping knowledge gap surrounding King Khufu's true identity, not to mention the seemingly impossible engineering of his resting place. You know the traditional narrative we all learned in school? Yeah, it might just be missing some absolutely crucial, mind-bending details.
Section 1. The Mystery of King Khufu. Let's start by unraveling his lineage.
Now, what's really interesting about this is a highly unusual title held by Khufu's mother. Back in 1925, archaeologists stumbled upon the tomb of Queen Hetepheres I. It was packed with precious grave goods bearing the name of King Sneferu. That's the pharaoh who ruled right before Khufu. So naturally, for a long time, everybody just assumed she was Sneferu's wife and Khufu's biological mom. Makes sense, right? Well, actually, she didn't carry the absolutely indispensable title of Hemet Nesut, or King's Wife. Instead, she held this totally unique title, Sat Netcher Ketif, which translates to King's Bodily Daughter. The fact that she wasn't called King's Wife is a huge clue. It strongly hints that Khufu might not have been King Sneferu's biological son at all. He might have actually been adopted into the royal line just to secure the succession. Crazy, right?
Moving on to Section 2. Khufu's Royal Family Tree. Building a Power Base.
Let's walk through these key suspects and allies, because it's like a giant puzzle. If Khufu wasn't Sneferu's biological son, Sneferu likely secured Khufu's divine rank through a strategic marriage. They essentially apotheosized Khufu's mother, treating her as the daughter of a living god to legitimize Khufu's rank. It was all about PR, really. And once in power, Khufu surrounded himself with family to execute his grand vision. I mean, talk about keeping it in the family. We've got his half-brother Ankaf, acting as an incredibly powerful vizier. Then there's his brilliant nephew, Hemiyunu, the absolute mastermind architect behind the Great Pyramid. Plus, his principal wives, Meritites I and Henetsen, helped anchor the whole dynasty. His reign was basically this carefully constructed, bulletproof web of family alliances.
Section 3. The Great Pyramid Problem. An impossible build.
Just look at the overwhelming scale of this thing. The Great Pyramid, originally known as Akhet Khufu, or the Horizon of Khufu, is a total monster. Today, it stands around 138 meters tall and is made up of an estimated 2.3 million stone blocks. 2.3 million! To put that astronomical number into perspective, the volume of this pyramid could fill the entire Empire State Building 2.5 times over. And we aren't just talking about little cinder blocks here. The largest stones, the ones placed way up above the king's chamber, weigh up to an astonishing 60 tons. Try wrapping your head around moving even one of those.
And this brilliantly illustrates the glaring problem with the traditional theories we've all been spoon-fed. What we're looking at is a model of a single-stage external ramp. This is the conventional, old-school idea, right? A massive army of workers just dragging giant stones up a seemingly endless incline. But from an architectural standpoint, this is highly absurd. To build a ramp that reaches the full 138-meter height at a usable slope, well, that ramp would actually require more material than the pyramid itself. And you couldn't just build it out of loose sand or gravel because it would literally spread and collapse under its own massive weight. So, if the giant ramp is out, how did they actually do it?
Which brings us to Section 4, Internal Ramps and Tiers. Let's look at some alternative theories.
So let's contrast two really compelling theories from modern architects who've tackled this mystery. First up, we have Jean-Pierre Houdin. He used some incredibly advanced 3D modeling software and proposed this brilliant internal spiral ramp. He suggests that an external ramp was used, but only for the first 30% of the pyramid. After that, an internal spiral ramp took over the heavy lifting, literally, using cranes positioned in open notches to hoist the blocks. On the flip side, we have architect Trevor Harris, who proposes a very logistics-focused, two-stage build. He points out a crucial fact. 80% of the pyramid's total volume sits below the 64-meter mark. So, he suggests a southern ramp reached exactly that level. which would allow oxen and other animals to do the brute force dragging of the heaviest stones. Then, for that remaining top 20%, Harris theorizes they built vertical tiers and used mechanical fulcrum and lever lifting devices to hoist the lighter stones up, story by story. Both super clever approaches.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds into something even wilder. Djoser's hydraulic lift system, a water-powered theory.
Okay, now this is a truly fascinating theory proposed by the Research Institute Paleotechnique, and it involves an older pharaoh, Djoser, and his step pyramid, which is a staggering 4,700 years old. They suggest these ancient engineers might have actually utilized a hydraulic, water-powered elevator. I mean, no way, right? But here's the step-by-step logic. First, occasional heavy floodwaters were captured by this massive stone enclosure called Gizr el-Madir. This directed the water into a huge trench known as the dry moat. Second, that water was carefully channeled into deep, previously excavated shafts right inside the pyramid. Third, as the water rushed in, a massive wooden float attached to pulleys and ropes would start to rise. And finally, when they drained the shaft, that massive float descended, pulling ropes that hoisted a counterweighted platform loaded with tons of building stones right up to the higher levels. It's essentially a giant 4,700-year-old water elevator.
Now, we have to be objective here and present all sides of the archaeological debate, because, as you might guess, this water elevator idea definitely has its skeptics. Egyptologist Kamil Kuriskiewicz makes a really solid point. He notes that Djoser's pyramid blocks weighed, on average, about 300 kilograms each. And that's heavy, but it's much lighter than Khufu's massive 60-ton stones. Kuriskiewicz argues that designing and building such a complex hydraulic system would just require way more effort than simply moving 300-kilogram blocks the old-fashioned way, with manpower and animals. Plus, other experts really question if that specific region even captured enough rainfall to sustain a massive water system like this in the first place.
Section 6. Comparing ancient construction theories. Khufu versus Djoser.
So, the crucial point we really need to take away here is the stark contrast in these engineering realities. When we look at Khufu's Great Pyramid, the sheer brute force scale is absolutely undeniable. With blocks weighing up to 60 tons and a volume that defies belief, architects almost universally agree that your standard single ramp just totally fails. Instead, the theories literally must rely on complex internal ramps, tiered scaffolding, and serious mechanical lever lifters just to manage that extreme weight. But on the flip side, we have Djoser's much older step pyramid built with those smaller 300-kilogram blocks. While simple manpower is highly feasible for Djoser, the existence of those mysterious deep inner shafts has sparked this heavily debated yet incredibly elegant theory about water flow manipulation. Two very different pyramids, two very different sets of architectural mysteries.
Which leaves us with a truly lingering, provocative thought to wrap up our explainer today. We've seen how Khufu's very right to the throne was likely a carefully orchestrated smoke and mirrors adoption into the royal family, and how he relied on his brilliant relatives to build an otherwise impossible monument. But think about this. If a hyper-elegant, water-powered elevator could have even been conceptualized for Egypt's oldest pyramid under Djoser, what lost, unimaginable technologies might still be hiding deep inside the solid stone walls of Khufu's Great Pyramid, just waiting in the dark to be discovered? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning history, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.